Mercy, the principal path marked out by Jesus for those desirous of following him. Catherine Macaulay, founder of the Sisters of Mercy.
Mother Macaulay had a vision of making a difference in the world, but she was driven by a love for Christ. She was a woman who fell in love with Christ, and because she loved Christ, she loved everyone whom Christ loves. When we forget to talk about Christ, then we forget the mission of Mother Macaulay.
So her life was very interesting, rich to poor to rich, and back and forth, and the grieving of all of the losses that she had in her life, all impacted her.
So she knew what it was like to be doing fine and then suddenly to be virtually, but not quite exactly, homeless, and then to regain some prosperity. I think those incidents made her very empathetic with people.
Catherine's inheritance allowed her to start her ministry.
She went to the Callahan family, and so she began to manage the house there and cared for their affairs when they would travel. And they eventually got elderly and sick, and Mrs. Callahan died first, and then Mr. Callahan was left with Catherine, and he decided Catherine Macaulay would get everything.
This gave her the opportunity to begin to realize a dream that she'd had for a while, and she decided to build what today would be called a settlement house or a neighborhood center, where she could have classrooms to teach children. She could provide safe housing for young girls who were coming into the city looking for work, and it could be a center from which she and other volunteers would go out to visit the sick.
I mean, they're opening up a house of mercy for women of good character who are trying to make their way in the city.
And they said that it wasn't going to, why is she doing this? Why is she spending all this money? But she had a vision of bringing the women and children off the streets, and that's what she did.
Opportunities for women were very limited, and much of that limitation came as a result of lack of education. So she saw that education was a key that would open a lot of doors.
She's seeing there are people who need education. She sees that there are people who need shelter, who need food, clothing, what have you.
Her spirit and ministry began to attract young women who desired to carry on her work.
Different women would rise who had a sense of call from God, a sense of vocation. Their desire was to have a group of women who would respond to the needs of the poor.
They helped women and children find shelter and provide them with education.
I mean, there's not a Sister of Mercy that's not educated, because we were there trying to educate.
These were women who had a passion for helping and for making a difference.
There were several different kinds of works that they would undertake in response to need. And so bishops in different parts of Ireland and then in England wanted to have sisters come and help work with the poor in their areas, start schools, maybe open a hospice or a hospital, do those things which they saw that their people were in need of.
Their foundation is this relationship with Christ and this spirituality, but they always take it out into the world.
And so they begin to expand in Ireland and into England and to Australia.
We were a congregation that went out among the people. We didn't just stay in our convents.
They'd be actually practicing what they're preaching.
They are on the streets ministering to people, visiting the sick.
Mother Catherine Macaulay will be remembered for her uncontainable desire to serve others, especially Christ. Her spirit continues to rest on those brave enough to follow her.
Catherine Macaulay was a remarkable individual.
The architect, the builder she was, the faithful woman, the entrepreneur, whatever. She has so many titles.
She was a charismatic leader. She inspired people to be the best that they could be, to want to do more. So yes, convent life had its rules, but Catherine didn't lead by rules. She led by example.